Should I have moved this table and actually just, you know, did a standing thing like a normal person? Probably, but I'm too lazy, and it's actually quite nice to sit like this. And hopefully my legs don't go dead. Sometimes I wonder with cats, when they do that little sitty thing, like do they get pins and needles when they do the like sit funny? Yeah, sometimes I think about that, but I do. I've actually made notes so that I don't ramble. But here we are. Basically, job history. Jobs are pretty jobs are crap. We have to do them. We like our comforts in cities. It's nice having people take your trash away. It's nice going to the shop and picking out whatever you want to eat. It's nice having food delivered. All of those things kind of require you to have a job to do them. Can move to the countryside, have my chickens as I always wanted, do less work, probably more work. So I suppose I will stick with the old having a job thing, which is great now because obviously I work for myself. So to get there, you do not do it straight out of university. You do all the work before. You do all the schlepping, you do all the dealing with office politics, you deal with some bizarre stuff that I did deal with in particular one of my jobs, just some really whack bizarre stuff. We won't get into that. This will purely be an educational thing. 2024, I work from home. I actually put on actual clothes today, which is a great achievement for me. I work for a variety of clients, from sportswear brands to a lot of beauty brands. I have some fashion clients as well. I'm pretty much exactly where I wanted to be according to my plans from many moons ago. It didn't come without its challenges, didn't come without its tears. I didn't just get handed anything. I matriculated in 2006, which was a very different time. Very different time. Take me back. I had a lot of choices, let me say. I had a lot of choices. My parents were pretty modest in, like, we were a family of 5. My dad was a teacher, my mom was a social worker. I had to get a student loan. So there were like a whole bunch of things to obviously factor in. I had a lot of choices, but it wasn't like we were the wealthiest people in the world. So in 2007 to 2009, I went to university. My art teacher in high school told me, for the love of Pete, do not get into photography. Stick to graphic design, do illustration, do all the other things that you have an interest in. Don't get into photography. And I said to her, don't worry, ma'am, don't worry. I have no interest in photography because I've never done it before, ever. I'd never done it. I like drawing. Please enjoy the smorgasbord of the different time I spoke about, because during this time I got to explore my emo-ness in my art. So this was the time of deviant art, and I'm sure that if you are creative, you're very aware of deviant art. There was definitely a style. What I really did like about my first year of doing this course was that I got to experience Photoshop, because the first time I ever experienced Photoshop was watching How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where Kate Hudson composites their faces to make a baby. It's great, and like that's what I thought that Photoshop was for. I had no idea. And then in 2007, I completely fell in love with doing photography, getting to know Photoshop better, and it just completely blew me away with what it was able to do. So I mean, it's a really great university, I think, for the arts. The lecturers were fantastic. I'm just very lucky that I am still in the creative industry. I think it's very rare for people to study something and then continue it. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that it's really great that we live in a time that if you do study something when you're 18 and you don't know what you want to do in your life, like, you can change. Like, you can, like, it's not the end of the world to change your career. If you're bored with it, if you're feeling like you're not good at it, like, change. Even if you're studying, I know it's a lot of money, but if you're studying and you're not sure about it, rather start something else. Life is too short to think that your life is in a box. We are just really lucky to have these opportunities available to us. Do I think that it's necessary to study something creative? Yes and no. I mean, we're not a bunch of surgeons here. Like, there isn't a right way to do it. I do think that it was a way to kind of really experiment and under really great mentorship, and my way of going through university and doing all of that and being where I am now was definitely a fast track way. I think that if I started from scratch trying to figure out by myself, it was probably, yeah. I actually worked on cruise ships. Very, very hectic in the way that you work every single day for, I think 8 months was my first contract. When you're 21 and it's your first job, it is a fun job because you have energy at 21. I still have friends working there, and I'm like, how? Because you work stupid hours and every single day you don't get a day off for like 8 months. So I actually did photography on cruise ships. First with Carnival, where I was in the States. Yeah, out of Miami, went to Bahamas and Jamaica and Grand Turk, all of those places, amazing. First time overseas, got to do photography, even though it was taking pictures of tourists when tourists are just trying to enjoy their holiday, and then you try and sell their photos. It really is one of the better jobs, obviously, on ships. Met amazing people, had a great team. So I did 3 contracts, 2 on Piano Australia. Got to see Fiji and Tonga and a whole bunch of places that are very, very difficult to get to. So I'm so grateful that I had that experience, and I would absolutely love to go back. I bought a Canon 5D Mark III at the end of one of my contracts in Australia. I paid off my student loans. I bought a car, moved back in August of 2012, and then moved to Cape Town in September. So a real proper retouching job. I got that in 2013, March 2013. I landed a job at a stock photography company, big one, where there were photographers and producers, keyworders, developers, everyone there at this company, which was great because then you really get a sense of not being just part of one part of the business, but you kind of see how everything works, which is excellent when you're starting out. I think that getting a job at this company was great. I had great training, made amazing friends. 2 of my best friends I met there, so we won't get into I mean, sometimes weird things happen, bizarre things happen at creative companies. Not going to get into that at all. We're going to talk about the stuff that matters, right? I'm going to be very diplomatic about this. Very good company, great training, made amazing friends. On occasion, we still get together and talk about our time at this company. I find that with retouchers, we usually quite a nice mix of people. Usually lots of different backgrounds because you don't really study retouching. You have like animators and photographers and graphic designers, sometimes even interior designers. I find retouching offices are always the most fun. Usually have a weird sense of humor. I don't know, it might be from like spending a lot of time in front of a screen. But yeah, it was honestly a dream come true getting this job. It really got me my start into having down on paper that I was a retoucher, for people to take me seriously. I'd done like a few small random jobs. I did do photography freelance for a bit as well. I really was super stoked to get in there. So I was doing freelance jobs on the side, on weekends, in the evenings at this job, especially with speed, like learning how to produce things really fast. It was essentially a factory. If you think about stock imagery, there's usually like a very specific recipe of shooting and a specific recipe of retouching. Rules that you follow because you know what sells as stock. I did feel that after a while I did outgrow position here. As a retoucher, we're probably 20 retouchers. It was quite a lot. I think that there were times when I would be so fast that I wouldn't have work and would be quite bored. So I found that this job was, you know, it didn't pay great at all. It was one of those jobs where you had an hourly rate and you had to do a certain amount of hours in the month. I wasn't even hitting those hours really because there wasn't work, especially near the end of my time there. And then you would get bonuses on top of that according to how fast and how well you worked. And then on occasion, I'd be in like the top 3 top retouchers, which would mean I would get like an extra 15 pounds a month, like 350 Rand or whatever. So it just wasn't going to be one of those sustainable jobs, but super grateful I got to work there. Super grateful that I got to have retoucher on my CV for the 1.5 years or so that I was there. I had been looking for a new job probably a year into working there. Nothing really came up except for one very, very interesting job that I had applied to, and I had already done 2 interviews at an e-commerce place. It was interesting because at that time, the company was going through 2 rounds of layoffs, and they actually retrenched probably half the company. Most of the retouchers, I'd say. A lot of the keyworders were let go. I think one of the admin people was let go. It was quite a shock. A lot of us didn't expect it at all. And I wasn't retrenched in the first round. The second round, I was. Luckily for me, they gave me 3 months salary, which was really generous. They didn't have to. And 2 weeks after that, I started my new job. So honestly, grateful for my time. Not the greatest job. Was quite bored. But yeah, honestly, you have to start at the bottom and just work your way up. You have to get something on your CV saying you're a retoucher. I find that here in the UK, they do want to see a CV when hiring you for freelance jobs, which I think is very different to back home. Wish them all the best. But just remember that whenever you have a bad job or a bad situation, you really got to use that as motivation, as fuel for fire to like not be in that situation anymore. You got to take all those bad experiences and just really use them for motivation. There are a lot of things that aren't in your control. There are things that are in your control. So you just got to remember that. And then going into an e-commerce job, which was interesting. So, little top tip about startups. Startups are great and necessary, but if you are going to work for one, especially when they talk about how wonderful their company culture is, it should kind of give you a little bit of an indication of what's going to be happening. So, startups, would I recommend working for them? Not really. Also, start off being super optimistic. Basically, I was hired as a photographer and retoucher for this online store, which it was pretty new, very, very new, and they were growing really, really quickly. When you're in a startup, you tend to wear many different hats. I did know going into it that I was going to be wearing a lot of different hats, and I was excited for it. I was young, I was super optimistic, I was very enthusiastic. I had a lot to offer. The whole team was very young, so I feel like a lot of us were kind of figuring out, there were like no people over 35 there, I swear. Everyone was young. In that period, I had actually, which I forgot to mention, in my last year specialized in fashion and in photo illustration in order to be a retoucher. Those are my electives. I chose to do them because they were very Photoshop heavy and they would look good in my portfolio and require me to like really up my skills in Photoshop, which I've given you a lot of examples of things that I did. Anyway, I've come a long way and my workflow is better and everything's better. Again, gotta be diplomatic. So I was brought in to basically start the photography department. They had been hiring a freelancer, which was obviously very expensive and not ideal when you're trying to shoot a lot of product for your store. I had to use my own camera. I had to use my own laptop, which was so overused. By the end it had burnt out. It died a very horrible death. Yeah, so I had to shoot anything between 40 and 100 products a day with minimum of 4 angles each, and then retouch them as well, which would include etching them out, and then I would also have to find models, and I would also have to write manuals and protocols and make lighting setup guides. In between everything, at one point I was a graphic designer. I was also a stylist. I would have to like find shoes from the warehouse for outfits. I would work from I think 8 till 5 every day. I think those were the hours. I would often work through lunch break. On a Friday they would often end early to do drinks or an activity or, you know, like team building. I often worked through that. I would take my laptop home, continue working I'd get home maybe 6 o'clock, eat maybe from 7, I would say from about 7 p.m. till midnight, sometimes later than that. I would still be retouching the images because I would have a deadline. We'd have a brand launching like a sale on the site, and I would have to have everything ready. And a lot of the times, like things have a really fast turnaround time. So I worked a lot. I worked a lot at this company. I really, really did. At least with this one, with my beautiful table mountain that I drew, at least I had weekends. So I had time to chill, or I had time to do freelancing, to do my own photography, to do whatever. This, I had no time to do anything. My relationship with Neil was even strained. I can definitely say that. I had to move my desk into the living room and facing the TV, so that Neil could sit on the couch and watch TV, and then I could be in the same room as him. It was really hard, but it was a complete learning curve of what I wanted in life. This was absolute breaking point for me in terms of photography. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be an e-commerce photographer. I didn't want to be in a position where I had to do both jobs. They're so very, very different. I think that making a photographer do any retouching or a retoucher do any photography at this pace that we were working, I think is completely unfair. I was also the only person doing photography, and I think that very quickly when it came up to me having to take annual leave, they realized that, oh crap, we're going to be in a bit of a situation, so we better think about this. They hired 2 extra people, which was amazing. It was such a huge difference. They also then got a laptop. So at the end of the day, like startups, they really do their best, but they're very restricted by budgets and things like that. I mean, they were doing exceptionally well. It's an incredible business, great model. Like, the people were fantastic. It's not entirely their fault about like how things are. It's just the way of business, and just not an environment that I particularly wanted to be in very long term. I think I did really well though, considering the pressure. I think I do pretty well under pressure anyway, which is definitely something that's helped me as a freelancer. Things are usually very high-paced. What really did get to me was I was working really, really hard, because everything at the end of the day kind of rests on are those pictures on the site, which I also would help upload. Like, I did so many things in this job that were like outside of my job description, and that's fine. That happens in many, many businesses. The thing that really, really upset me and made me want to leave, where I was like, why am I doing this, was I had a meeting with the owner, and she said to me, we were just having a catch-up. We did catch-ups often, and we'd go through all the images and what we can do, and like, oh, this is great, like, really like this shoot, why don't we try do this? And we're just having a discussion, and I would tell her, we actually really need extra lights, or, you know, anything like that. We'd just have our little weekly catch-up. And then she said to me, oh, I see you don't do the after 5 thing. And I was horrified. I was completely horrified. First of all, it wasn't in a very nice area. And even though I was given a parking spot behind a gate, and this is South Africa, so it's like, I don't think people realize, I'm not saying things don't happen in London, of course they do, but in South Africa, bad stuff goes down a lot, very, very often. And it's very, very unsettling as a woman, even driving in your car. Like, driving alone, I wouldn't even want to do, let alone like walk in the street. It's in quite an industrial area. I would have to walk across the road into the gated area to get into my car, and then drive through a not great area to get home. So I am leaving at 5 o'clock to, while it's still light, getting in my car and driving home, and then working at home. There would be no reason for me to sit in the office after 5, especially everyone else leaves. And I would not want to really, some of the buyers would maybe be there, but people generally left at 5 or 5:30. That's what it was. So I'd get in my car, go home, work, and to have someone, that's all it took, was for me to say, what am I doing this for? Like, why am I getting burnt out? Why am I? And no job is easy, and I'm not expecting to have an easy time. I knew that it was going to be a struggle. I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. I didn't expect was to have someone say to me, you're not doing enough. I see that you're breaking yourself. Like, I was so tired every single day, and I would have people say to me, oh, you look tired. And it's like, I'm not partying. I'm not, you know, going out all night. I was certainly not doing any freelance work. There was zero time for that. I was working weekends as well. I put in my resignation after I had already gone for quite a number of interviews with another company. I think possibly two interviews and a test. Even the person that I met at this company as one of the other photographers, and we became quite good friends, she left after 3 months. She was like, this is absolutely absurd. 11 months here, probably 10 months too long. Learned what I wanted out of a job, learned what I didn't want out of a job. You know what? Lovely people. I wish them all the best. So 2015 to 2017, best job I could ever have. Amazing company. just amazing staff, so talented in every way. The stuff we worked on, just incredible. It was a magazine publishing company, and they did various titles, from cars to sports to politics, business, fashion, home and lifestyle. I had gone for interviews while at this job, and I actually replaced my best friend's position, I think. My best friend who worked there ended up working there, and she moved to London and I took her spot. It was pretty hectic getting into such an established company. I think that when you come from these guys who were also like kind of shooting from the hip, I would say, also figuring it out, and this was established. So this was like a much higher level of what was expected of you from a quality point of view and understanding the ways that they worked, whereas they kind of figured that out. They were figuring it out. Like, this was like, there is a structure, this is how we work, which was great. I think that, you know, having such a varied way of, you know, going through the motions, I would definitely say that this was a lot more stable. I would always make it a point to go around the office and like greet people in the morning or at lunchtime, like actually go around, say hi, how's it going, have a few jokes, have a tea. I think it's really, really important when you're working with other people to actually get to know them so that you guys can have a better understanding, especially when you're working in this industry, because deadlines are deadlines and you have printers to deal with and there's like a lot going on. I must say, in this job as well, I got so much respect. I got, you know, other people from other departments popping into our office, which again, like, retouchers are always in the dungeon or in the dark corner of the office, and we're a bunch of weirdos. Like, this office was an absolute blast. Like, I miss all of these guys so much. But yeah, like, people would come into our office and say, oh, I mean, they would obviously go to like my manager or the deputy manager, but if they weren't there, okay, maybe it was because I was sitting like right at the door. But I really got a sense that I was contributing and I got respect from other people, and I felt like I respected other people as well. I really just, yeah, I just felt like I was really contributing and people were happy to have me there. So after not freelancing for like 11 months or however long it was quite terrible, because I felt like I had built momentum from, you know, earlier years of just getting some stuff done. Got back into freelancing, I would say 2015. So it was like a good, yeah, I would say like 11 months, if not. This is where I really, really started to get into doing ad campaigns. So much higher level, because I was doing retouching in magazines. So it was like really like beautiful images. We had food stylists and beauty editors and all sorts make the images at such a high quality, and then I got to use it in my portfolio. So it really, really managed to get me some amazing ad work. I mean, I had weekends, I could do my own thing. I didn't take work home on the weekend. There were times when actually my mom passed away during this time. It was pretty hectic, and they were very, very understanding about that, especially because I would have to go back to Port Elizabeth, which is like a good 8-hour drive or like a 2-hour plane trip. So that was good. The thing was that I was freelancing and I was making so much money from just working evenings and weekends. I was kind of like, why? I was starting to like toy with that idea of, you know, I would be able to get a lot more done if I didn't have this job. I could see what was achievable with doing freelancing. which was great. And I wasn't in any way overcharging, or I was charging like probably too little. I would say one of the huge factors for me leaving as well was my dad got really ill in 2017. You know, I just felt like it would be really good to be more flexible and spend time with family and be able to just, I wouldn't have to like apply for leave to go visit. So yeah, I mean, he was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. At that point as well, someone had been hired, because this was the magazine industry. Someone had been hired to restructure the company because they were planning on doing, you guessed it, layoffs. So unfortunately, the magazine industry is not the same as what it was, and it's not their fault. It's just changing landscapes, and I'm very, very grateful for the time that I did get to work in magazines, because again, 13 going on 30, and you know, how to lose a guy in 10 days. It was always the dream. I mean, it was September issue. It was always the dream to work for a magazine. So very, very grateful for that. When they were planning on doing layoffs, I actually thought, this is my chance. This is my chance to freelance and get this again, to get maybe a payout that could be like a little bit of a safety net while I get my stuff in order. I had actually asked my manager, would you be keen to retrench me? And at that point, they weren't retrenching in the retouching department. It was also repo artist. So we kind of did like DTP, or art worker. Is that what they call it here? I think it's an art worker. She said no, I wouldn't be retrenched. They're actually planning on moving the retouchers, or majority of the retouchers, to the design departments. They'd asked each department to vote on which retoucher they would like to move in the department, and the home and lifestyle had a art director who was really fantastic in the home and lifestyle section. They actually wanted me to go to design, and I thought that was very sweet. I was also really, really good friends with the sports art director, so he did like SA rugby, SA cricket, really good friends, and I was also like the liaison between the sports department and ours in terms of design, and because obviously we'd have to talk to design. Oh, and again, my best friend, my other best friend from here worked here, so they worked together then anyway, so that's also really nice. So it was really nice having my best friend and also the art director from the sports department. We all, you know, we worked together and we were really good friends, and when I go back to South Africa, we'll probably a lot of the retouching department will still get together and have like a braai or whatever. The company has since rebranded as well. They're still going, they're still doing magazines, just in a different way. Really left with a heavy heart. I was so grateful for this. A lot of what I know today, a lot of my workflow, I owe to my manager, who was really superb at what she did, and I wish everyone here and I wish this company all the best. So you're saying like, Lauren, you are talking way too much. We don't give a crap. We don't care. You just need to tell us how you have managed to stay being a freelancer in one of the most expensive cities in the world, because it's really expensive. But yeah, it honestly, it comes from me dealing with, well, I had that as a base, but it really dealt with me dealing with a lot of other jobs. You have to go through the ringer. You have to know how things work. You can't just like dive into freelancing. I also wouldn't recommend freelancing, have a job and then just freelance. You have to do the job and the freelance at the same time. You have to get those clients. You have to really build it up. You have to know how to approach people. And I think that dealing with people in normal jobs is so key. Like, you have to get all those skills to be a freelancer. If someone out there is a freelancer from like straight out of uni, like, please let me know. Even with photographers, they've all assisted before. They've all done the like proper low-level work to build up to where they are today. And I mean, I'm 35, I'm not that old, but I have seen people my age, they're doing incredibly well today. And I remember them being like proper low-level lackey, not even picking up a camera for like the longest time. So I really do think that that is the recipe for success. So while you're doing the really terrible jobs, try and get those clients. How do you get those clients? You email, you LinkedIn, in mail, whatever. There is nothing wrong with being a pain in the butt. Like, you have to be present. And by being present, yeah, you make a website and you put it up, but like, no one's going to see your website unless you're actually emailing people. Instagram is obviously great, and I have had people more low, like not ad people, lowbrow as opposed to high-end jobs, and very grateful for them. I still do like very small jobs as well. It's nice to break up the flow, and you don't know where those would lead. Yeah, like you have to email people. You have to say, hi, I am so-and-so and I am a retoucher. And I know it seems spammy. Type out those emails differently every time. Don't just do a copy and paste. Actually write an email and say, I really liked the work you did on this, and I feel like our styles are very similar and we could work well together. That's usually how I go about it. I usually email people that do match the type of work I do. I don't just like email random people. I do take care in who I email, and you're either going to get a yes or a no, and the no is often silence, which is really, really crap. But like, what do you have to lose? Like, what do you have to lose? You also have to not undersell yourself. I find that especially with women, and it is a known thing, women tend to price themselves lower. They tend to give discounts. I'm even, you know, guilty of that. Women are biologically more amenable, and men are biologically more likely to take risks. So that's just something you have to deal with and be aware of, and just say, you know, no, I am going to charge this much, and I'm going to stick to my guns, and this is my rate, and we're going to stick with that. Honestly, you have to just put yourself out there. Don't be worried about what people think. If you don't ask, you do not get. And that is the bottom line. You have to break eggs to make an omelette. You have to go through this process to get there. I know it's difficult because the economy is not what it was when our parents were growing up, where you could be a teacher or a social worker and buy a house and know that things are not looking great, where you feel like working these jobs with such minimal pay, it's like, it feels like a waste. And I can tell you now, I had so many times when I was in proper tears and I'm like, what is this all for? When you know you have stuff to offer and you know that you're worth more and you're really doing your best and there's nothing else that you can do, those times, I promise you, you don't realize them then, but they lead here if you make the right steps. And that's basically what this video is. Here was like proper lowest of lows. There were definitely horrible bits here where I had tonsillitis and I would have to like I had to work through it. It was horrible. You really have to go through it. I really hope that this video is positive and kind of makes you realize that every experience you have is experience. Get the experience and then put yourself out there. Get that portfolio together. Work your tuchus off.